Hey everyone, What If Fan here, bringing you another exciting part of What If copy system in Naruto. You can find the fanfic title and the original author's name on my Patreon page. Make sure to check it out and show them some love. If you enjoy the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you never miss an upload. Also check out my Patreon channel for early releases of all the series, where you can find all the series released one day ahead of YouTube. Alright, let's jump into it. Chapter 261, When the Fourth Raikage Meets Dad. Konoha and Kumo's little spat is hardly worth watching. Shin, learning that Konoha and Kumo were at war again, felt a flicker of interest until he saw the scale of their war, and his excitement fizzled into disappointment. This wasn't a war, it was a playground squabble. Nothing like a true shinobi world war. Each side had only sent a few hundred ninja. Not even their Kage had bothered to show up. The commanders were just elite jonin. How underwhelming. Shin was currently in the land of whirlpools, observing the conflict through his third Raikage puppet. Unbeknownst to him, the fourth Raikage, and Killer Bee, the Eight-Tails Jinchuriki, had left Kumogakure. Their target, Shin's third Raikage puppet. Shin, controlling the puppet and traveling openly, had inadvertently revealed its existence to A. Upon hearing about his father's reappearance, I had initially been furious, assuming it was a hoax. But when presented with undeniable proof, he couldn't ignore it. He had to see for himself. "Brother, is the news true?" Killer Bee asked, his usual boisterous demeanor replaced by a rare seriousness. He didn't want to be on the receiving end of A's wrath. I had repeatedly warned him to drop the ridiculous rapping, especially the casual insults. B's raps often included words like fool and idiot, and I wasn't about to tolerate being called an idiot by his own brother. Besides, this involved his father. B wouldn't be flippant about such a matter. Not confirmed yet. I hope it's not Shin Uzumaki's doing. Lightning crackled around A, his anger palpable. He wanted revenge for his father's death, but he lacked the strength. Even after becoming Raikage, he hadn't acted rashly. As a Kage, he had to be responsible for the people in his village. Dodai, his advisor, had also helped him maintain his composure. This time, however, A had left without informing Dodai. If Dodai knew, he wouldn't have allowed it. As the village's Kage, whether for his own safety or for the village, he shouldn't leave the village without authorization. Intel suggests father was last seen in the land of rice paddies. We're close behind. A, enveloped in lightning chakra mode, vanished in a blur of speed. Brother, wait up. You, idiot. Bastard. Killer Bee yelled after him. After traveling for half a day, they reached the land of rice paddies. A, exhausted, collapsed to the ground. Finally caught up. Almost lost him. Killer Bee also slumped down, his chakra and stamina depleted. And even borrowed Eight-Tails chakra. Unlike other Jinchuriki, B had a perfect synergy with the Eight-Tails, who willingly lent him power. We'll rest tonight, then begin our search tomorrow. I want to see who's impersonating my father. A's anger hadn't subsided. He didn't believe his father was truly alive. His anger hadn't clouded his judgment, though. He wouldn't act rashly. He suspected this might be Shin Uzumaki's doing, and in his current state, confronting Shin would be suicide. After resting for the night, A, fully recovered, resumed the search with Killer Bee. He had already dispatched scouts. Soon, they had the puppet's location. Let's go. A, with Killer Bee at his side, headed towards the location, his fury simmering. Following the scouts' intel, they finally cornered the third Raikage puppet. Shin, observing them through the puppet, found the situation awkward. "Son, call me Dad." Shin blurted out through the puppet, breaking the tense silence. The fourth Raikage's face turned red. It was the redness of anger. "Who exactly are you?" the fourth Raikage asked angrily. "You ungrateful brat. You don't even recognize your own father?" Shin said, channeling the third Raikage scruff persona, though inwardly, he was struggling to contain his laughter. Lightning crackled around A, his hair standing on end like a Super Saiyan. Are you going to attack your own father? The third Raikage asked calmly. You're not my father. A roared, lunging forward with a punch. Despite the perfect disguise, even the voice, the tone was wrong. The puppet effortlessly caught A's punch. What? You're Shin Uzumaki? Impressive. You actually figured it out. Though, you'd be a disgrace as Raikage if you didn't. Why are you impersonating my father? A's eyes were bloodshot. He assumed Shin was using a transformation jutsu. You're mistaken. I'm not impersonating anyone. This is the third Raikage, your father. What do you mean? A's fists trembled, a sense of dread washing over him. You might be all muscle, but I hope your brain isn't made of it too. Can't you figure it out? You turned my father into a puppet? A's worst fears were confirmed, though he'd been unwilling to believe it. His father was dead, and now his body was being desecrated. He swore he'd kill Shin Uzumaki. Chapter 262, Father Beats Son. The fourth Raikage gritted his teeth, his eyes turning blood red from excessive anger. You bastard! Killer Bee was also very resentful. The third Raikage was his foster father. And he was also very good to him. Killer Bee couldn't tolerate Uzumaki Shin's behavior. Turning someone's father into a puppet was despicable, but did Shinobi even care about morality? Compared to Tobirama Senju's Edo Tensei, which manipulated even the souls of the dead, this was relatively tame. After all, the Edo Tensei didn't even spare the soul, making it so you couldn't even have peace after death. Uzumaki Shin, you better return my father's body, or I'll kill you, the fourth Raikage said, suppressing the anger in his heart. Return it? Sure. Come and get it. Shin appeared atop a nearby tree. Shin had placed a flying thunder god mark on the puppet, making teleportation easy. Though he could see and hear through the puppet, he preferred observing in person. Although he could also know everything that happened through the third Raikage's perspective, Shin still felt that it was more comfortable to see it in person. Seeing Shin appear, the fourth Raikage couldn't help but take a few steps back. You're afraid of me, yet you threaten to kill me? How amusing. Shin's mockery fueled A's rage and embarrassment. Why was he afraid of his father's killer? Brother, let's retrieve father's body, Killer Bee said. A nodded and rushed towards the puppet, intending to sever the chakra strings. He knew puppeteers controlled their puppets with chakra strings, so severing them was the most effective counter. However, he found no strings. While he was momentarily stunned, the puppet punched him, sending him flying like a cannonball. Brother! Killer Bee immediately caught the fourth Raikage, but he was also smashed away by the fourth Raikage's body, acting as a meat shield. Pooh! The fourth Raikage spat out a mouthful of blood, his chest caved in, and the imprint of a fist could be seen. Under my control, the third Raikage can unleash power far beyond his lifetime. Shin said to the fourth Raikage calmly. When a person is alive, because of the body's protective mechanism, they can't unleash their power by 100% because that would hurt themselves. But now, as a corpse, did it still need to be afraid of damage to itself? The puppet's punch could even send a tailed beast flying. If not for A's lightning release chakra mode, he would have died now. That bastard. Killer Bee cursed. B, hurry up and take your brother away. You're no match for him, the Eight Tails' voice rang in Killer Bee's heart. The Eight Tails could observe the outside situation through Killer Bee's eyes. When he saw Shin, Eight Tails was almost scared to death. You're the Eight Tails. Why are you scared? Killer Bee couldn't understand the Eight Tails' fear. If you'd been beaten up by him, you'd be scared too. The Eight Tails felt its fear was justified. Shin could control it with a glance, what could it do? Boom! The third Raikage unleashed lightning release chakra mode, and then rushed towards A and Killer Bee at high speed. Brother, are you okay? Killer Bee asked worriedly, seeing his spitting blood. You're not going to die, are you? Shut up. Get out of the way. A shoved Bee aside and dodged. Because of his quick reflexes, he avoided a direct hit, but the ground where the puppet's fist landed was pulverized, leaving a scorched crater. "You two better get serious, or you'll die," Shin warned them through the puppet. "Brother, let's attack Uzumaki Shin," Killer Bee yelled. He figured if they took out Shin, the puppet would be useless. A nodded. Ignoring the pain in his chest, he charged towards Shin, enveloped in lightning chakra mode, moving like a bolt of lightning. Fast as he was, the puppet was faster. It intercepted A, unleashing another devastating punch. The previous blow, without lightning release chakra mode, had nearly killed A. This one, amplified by lightning chakra, could be fatal. Lightning release elbow, A yelled, bracing for impact, his elbow meeting the puppet's fist head-on. Crack! A's face contorted in pain as his elbow shattered. The puppet, unfazed, sent A flying. As a puppet, it felt no pain. A stumbled back to Killer Bee's side, cold sweat dripping from his brow. "You can't even handle a puppet, and you think you can fight me? Where do you get the nerve?" Shin said, jumping down from the tree. "Bee, run." I knew they couldn't win, retrieving his father's body was impossible. "What? Leave you behind? No way." Bee refused. Though often goofy, he was fiercely loyal. He wouldn't abandon his brother. "Hachibi-sama, I need your help." Although Eight-Tails was very afraid of Uzumaki Shin, at critical moments, he was still willing to lend Killer Bee power. The Eight-Tails' chakra appeared on his body, his abilities in all aspects were greatly enhanced. Speed and strength were greatly enhanced. This was the increase brought by Eight-Tails' chakra. "Interesting. I'll use you two to test my puppet," Shin said, eager to see its capabilities in a real fight. As a puppet, the third Raikage could access Shin's Rinnegan, Tensegan, and Sharingan abilities. But not his other Kekii Genkai, like Ice Release, Wood Release, or Magnet Release. Chapter 263, A Sneak Attack Unworthy of the Stage. Boom! Killer Bee lay on the ground like a rag doll, and the fourth Raikage was also lying on the ground, seriously injured, just like Killer Bee. "It seems you guys are too weak. I can't even use you to test the puppet's strength." Shin couldn't help but shake his head in disappointment. He only used the third Raikage's standard ninjutsu and taijutsu, and he directly beat Killer Bee and the fourth Raikage to a pulp. "Don't get cocky. I'm not done yet." Killer Bee's injuries rapidly healed, thanks to the Eight-Tails' chakra. "Hachibi-sama, I'm going full-tailed beast mode." Killer Bee called out mentally. "Fine. I'll play along. Though honestly, I'd rather never see that man again." The Eight-Tails sighed. It lent Killer Bee its full power. Killer Bee transformed into the Eight-Tails. "Long time no see, Eight-Tails. I've missed you." Shin smiled at the massive beast, and the Eight-Tails inwardly shuddered. Eight-Tails was speechless. "You miss me? I don't want you to miss me." The memory of being controlled by Shin's Sharingan filled it with dread. Perhaps with Killer Bee's interference, it could resist Shin's genjutsu this time? It felt a flicker of hope, then, remembering Shin's overwhelming ocular power, its confidence crumbled. "Hachibi-sama, don't lose your nerve. Charge!" Killer Bee shouted with enthusiasm. "Come on, third Raikage. Let's see if you can really brawl with a tailed beast." Shin controlled the puppet, charging forward recklessly. He didn't care if the puppet was damaged, it was expendable. The puppet, cloaked in lightning release chakra mode, unleashed its strongest attack, the Hellstab one-finger nukite. The Eight-Tails didn't have time to form a tailed beast ball, the puppet was too fast. Besides, a tailed beast bomb wouldn't be effective unless it landed a direct hit. And unless Shin deliberately made the puppet a target, that wasn't happening. The puppet's one-finger strike sent the Eight-Tails, despite its massive size, flying hundreds of meters, leaving a deep gouge in the earth. Impressive. The rumors were true. Shin couldn't help but applaud, genuinely impressed. Excluding Hashirama Senju, the third Raikage was one of the strongest Kage in history. Shin Uzumaki, Lightning Release, Lariat. Enveloped in lightning release chakra mode, charged towards Shin, aiming a powerful blow at his neck. This technique, when used in tandem with another shinobi, was called the lightning release, double lariat, a Kumo secret technique where two users simultaneously attacked a single target from opposite sides, severing their head. It required perfect coordination, only A and Killer B could perform it. Now, it was using it alone, a sneak attack on Shin. He deliberately hidden himself, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. He could almost taste victory, picturing Shin's head being ripped from his body. Then, his attack passed harmlessly through Shin. A whipped around, staring at Shin in disbelief. Why didn't it work? A sneak attack? Really? Did you think you could actually kill me with that? Shin looked at him as if he were an idiot. Even if they attacked him for eternity, he wouldn't be able to harm Shin. A, frustrated, attacked again, but his attacks continued to pass through Shin, unable to connect. Genjutsu? Are you using an illusion on me? The fourth Raikage suspected he had been caught in a genjutsu, despite his precautions. Shin didn't bother explaining. Obito's Kamui was quite effective. The fourth Raikage was already doubting his own sanity. Shin kicked the fourth Raikage in the face, sending him flying like a toy. Given the fourth Raikage's durability, he probably wouldn't die. The fourth Raikage's body skidded across the ground for hundreds of meters before crashing into a cliff face, the impact leaving him embedded in the rock and the surrounding stone riddled with cracks. That was a casual kick. If you died from that, you're just too weak to live, Shin said indifferently. That casual kick had the force of a speeding truck Kuin, perhaps even greater. Shin sensed that A was still alive, though barely, like a flickering candle flame about to be extinguished. Too weak. I need a real challenge. Shin looked up at the sky, longing for a worthy opponent. Fortunately, Shin's personality itself wasn't that of a battle maniac, otherwise, he would probably be bored to death. He glanced at the Eight Tails, which was being pummeled by the third Raikage puppet. Under Shin's control, the puppet was far stronger than it had been in life. The original third Raikage could only fight the Eight Tails to a standstill, even if he could gain a slight advantage at times. What's going on? Is that thing on drugs? The Eight Tails wondered, struggling against the puppet's relentless assault. It knew that puppets, even those controlled by powerful shinobi, rarely surpassed the original's strength. However, the third Raikage puppet was different. It was like a Six Paths of Pain puppet. Nagato's Six Paths of Pain weren't inherently strong. Yahiko, the Deva Path, had only been an elite jonin in life, yet as a puppet, he could access power beyond even Kage level. Of course, that was mainly due to the Rinnegan. The third Raikage puppet was similar. Its chakra came from Shin. And because Shin's chakra was so potent, the puppet was far stronger than the original. Its lightning release chakra mode, fueled by Shin's chakra, was far more powerful than the original's. Chapter 264, No Right to Choose. Shin watched as the third Raikage puppet pummeled the Eight Tails. The visual impact was impressive, but the Eight Tails wasn't truly injured. Sealing Jutsu. Adamantine sealing chains. Countless chakra chains erupted from the puppet's back, binding the Eight Tails and wrapping it like a mummy. Sealing Jutsu is the best way to deal with tailed beasts, Shin said with a faint smile. Eight Tails had the ability to escape by cutting off its tail, but after being wrapped up like a mummy, Eight Tails had no way to use this ability. Raikage-sama, Killer B-sama, we're here to save you. Suddenly, a group of Kumo shinobi, led by Dodai, charged towards them. Dodai, a trusted advisor of the third Raikage, was a veteran of Kumogakure. More flies buzzing around. Shin turned his head and glanced at them. There were quite a few people who came. Where's the Raikage-sama? Dodai looked around and finally saw the fourth Raikage, and then immediately ran towards the fourth Raikage. Raikage-sama. Are you all right? I was unconscious and couldn't answer. Medics! Tend to the Raikage! Dodai yelled, relieved he'd brought medical shinobi. Though not a medic himself, he could see it was on the verge of death. Raikage-sama's injuries are very serious. He must be taken back to the village as soon as possible to save his life, a medic said grimly after examining A. The injuries were too serious. The medical equipment here was not enough, and they could only use medical ninjutsu to barely alleviate it. Take him back to Kumogakure. If anything happens to him, you'll pay with your lives. Dodai ordered without hesitation. Trying to save someone on my watch? Did you ask me? Shin's voice was calm, but his gaze made Dodai tremble. Originally, Dodai had a psychological shadow over Uzumaki Shin, but now that he met Shin's gaze, his heart suddenly skipped a beat, and then he immediately lowered his head. Dodai-sama, isn't that the third Reikage? One of the Kumo shinobi suddenly exclaimed, pointing. It is. Dodai, familiar with the third Reikage, recognized him instantly. He heard rumors of the third Reikage's reappearance. It was precisely because of this news that Dodai chased after him out of worry after learning that the fourth Reikage had left Kumogakure. No, he's being controlled. Dodai said seriously, his angry gaze fixed on Uzumaki Shin. Not controlled. He's dead. I turned him into a puppet. Shin said to Dodai calmly. Shin's casual revelation enraged the Kumo shinobi even further. Not only had he killed their Reikage, but he also desecrated his body. Soon you will all die too. Shin wasn't planning on letting them escape. They saved the fourth Reikage, but that was fine. Shin was too lazy to chase. But as a price, these guys would die in place of the fourth Reikage. Everyone, be careful! Dodai shouted loudly. Dodai knew Uzumaki Shin's strength, but even if he didn't want to be enemies at this time, he had no choice but to fight. They had to rescue Killer Bee. The Eight Tails was too important to Kumogakure. Fire release, Great Fire Annihilation. A massive wall of flames, hundreds of meters wide, roared towards them, scorching the earth and igniting the surrounding trees. Shin's version of the jutsu was even stronger than Madara Uchiha's. Is that even ninjutsu? Dodai felt a wave of despair. This level of ninjutsu was really not something they could resist. The key was that they didn't have many people who knew water-release ninjutsu. Everyone, scatter! Dodai shouted loudly. As for whether they could dodge this attack, Dodai didn't know. It was up to fate. Minutes later, the flames subsided, leaving only a handful of Kumo shinobi alive, their bodies covered in burns. We're no match for him. Run! Dodai sighed. Rescuing Killer Bee was impossible now. Not that he didn't want to, he simply couldn't. Would release deep forest emergence. Countless trees erupted from the earth, transforming the surrounding area into a dense forest within seconds. Even the scorched earth couldn't stop their growth. The remaining Kumo shinobi, including Dodai, were entangled, crushed, and absorbed by the trees. Shin then turned his attention to the bound Eight Tails. It's your bad luck to provoke me. Chakra chains shot out from Shin's hand, forcibly extracting the Eight Tails from Killer Bee. Shin glanced at Killer Bee, who had collapsed unconscious. Normally, extracting a tailed beast meant death for the Jinchuriki. But as the Eight Tails was pulled free, it left a single tail connected to Killer Bee, keeping him barely alive. Eight Tails, you're quite attached to him, aren't you? Shin Uzumaki, please spare him, the Eight Tails pleaded. It knew it couldn't demand anything from Shin, only strength granted that right. If it was strong enough, it wouldn't be bound like this. Shin glanced at Killer Bee. Whether he lived or died was irrelevant to Shin. I don't mind sparing him. But I expect your cooperation from now on. Of course, you don't really have a choice. Shin looked at the Eight Tails, his Rinna Tenseigen gleaming. Chapter 265, You still want to go out stealing hearts? Saying he would let Killer Bee go, Shin naturally wouldn't go back on his word. From then on, he didn't even glance at Killer Bee. This oversized raccoon isn't very useful. Shin considered what to do with the Eight Tails. Honestly, it wasn't of much use to him. The Nine Tails was far more interesting. Though only at its full power, not the split yin and yang halves. Even then, the Nine Tails would only be a pet. In a real fight, it wouldn't be of much help. After all, Shin's opponents were 6 paths level. What could the Nine Tails do against them? I'll just seal it away. Shin looked at the 8 tails, then at the third Raikage puppet. He'd seal the 8 tails within the puppet. He wasn't sure if a tailed beast could be sealed within a dead body, but he wanted to try. It would be an interesting experiment. He didn't care if the 8 tails objected, its opinion was irrelevant. 4 symbols seal. Sealing a tailed beast was child's play for Shin. A single 4 symbol seal was enough to contain the 8 tails within the third Raikage puppet. It actually worked. Shin observed the puppet. It seemed perfectly stable. Even as a corpse, the third Raikage's body, with its incredible durability, could handle the 8 tails' chakra. Shin controlled the puppet, sending it away before using Yamatsu Hirasaka to return to the land of whirlpools. Only Killer Bee remained, no longer a Jinchuriki, but a pseudo-Jinchuriki with a single tail remaining. If that tail's chakra was depleted, Killer Bee would likely die. You left suddenly. Was it something important? Makoto asked when Shin returned. He vanished mid-conversation without a word. Not really, Shin replied with a shrug. He didn't consider the events in the land of rice paddies important. Of course, for the shinobi world, and especially for Kumogakure, it was a major event. They lost their tailed beast, their Raikage was severely injured and on the verge of death. Dodai, a Quasi-Kage-level shinobi, had been killed, along with numerous other jonin and elite jonin. The losses were devastating. Dodai's team had been elite, but Shin had wiped them out. Even if the fourth Raikage was healed, he would be devastated. In the future, when you have something to go out for, remember to tell us, Kushina said, slightly annoyed. Okay. It's not like I was going out to cheat on you guys. Shin muttered under his breath. Kushina overheard him and exploded. What? You're thinking of cheating? She slammed her fist on the table, glaring at him. No. When did I ever say that? Shin sighed. Women are really unreasonable sometimes. Kushina, you're insulting my character. This is an outrage. Shin's indignant outburst was met with silence, followed by stares of utter disbelief from Kushina, Makoto, Tsunade, and Mei Terumi. Only Conan refrained from judging him. Shin sighed. Only Conan was on his side. I'm going to train, he announced, grabbing his teacup and leaving. He couldn't stay, they were ganging up on him. Hey! That's my cup! Mei Terumi yelled, but Shin was already gone. Mei, that's practically an indirect kiss, Tsunade teased. We're close enough. I wouldn't mind if it was with Mei, Makoto said with a smile, looking at Mei Terumi. Makoto-ne, I don't understand what you mean, Mei Terumi said, looking down, her face slightly red. Yes, you do. Makoto was perceptive. She had observed Mei Terumi long enough to understand her feelings. Tsunade had noticed as well. Mei Terumi chose not to respond, touching her cheeks, which felt warm. Meanwhile, Shin had teleported to a deserted island in the Land of Water, one of the many uninhabited islands surrounding the mainland. Shin was here to practice a new technique. Floating in the air, looking at the small island below, Shin's chakra surged wildly, and then he swung his fist towards the small island. 80 God's vacuum attack. A barrage of chakra-infused fists slammed into the island, pulverizing it into dust. The force of the attack continued downwards, striking the seabed and creating a massive tidal wave that shook the entire surrounding area. The island, chosen as Shin's testing ground, had met an unfortunate end. And not just the island, the shockwave reached the Land of Water's mainland, causing tremors and sending the tidal wave crashing towards the shore. As expected of the ultimate esoteric taijutsu, this attack is really exaggerated. Shin watched the approaching tsunami, then tossed a truth-seeking orb. The small black sphere expanded into a massive barrier, absorbing the wave and neutralizing it completely. He wouldn't allow his training to harm innocent people. If the tsunami reached the mainland, it could kill thousands. Chapter 266, The Kagaya Clan Rebels. 80 God's Vacuum Attack is the ultimate esoteric taijutsu mastered by Kagaya Otsutsuki, which is somewhat similar to the Hyuga clan's 8 trigrams vacuum palm. 8 trigrams vacuum palm is one of the few long-range attack methods in Gentle Fist.
It releases ultra-high-intensity chakra shockwaves in the form of a palm, which is the 8 trigrams vacuum palm.
And 80 God's vacuum attack is also similar, except that it throws out chakra fists condensed from high-intensity chakra.
Although the two are similar, they cannot be mentioned in the same breath.
8 trigrams vacuum palm is completely incomparable to 80 God's vacuum attack. Officially, 80 God's vacuum attack is the fist that shakes the sky with senjutsu power, integrating offense and defense, and showing no mercy. Every punch is a sure kill blow, leaving no room for even a mouse to escape. The defense of a complete body Susanoo is as fragile as paper under the attack of 80 God's vacuum attack. When Shin used it just now, he directly wiped out an island, and even the seabed was revealed under the attack of this merciless fist. This taijutsu also belongs to the power of Kekkei Mora. In the original work, only Kagaya Otsutsuki would use this move. Now Shin has finally researched it through his own research. As for whether it will be different from Kagaya Otsutsuki's 80 God's vacuum attack, Shin is not sure about this. After all, Shin has never seen Kagaya Otsutsuki use it in person. Even if there is a difference, Shin doesn't think that the 80 God's vacuum attack he researched will be worse than Kagaya's. Perhaps his is even stronger. This power is very strong, but the chakra consumption is not small either. Shin noted, sensing his depleted reserves. He could handle the cost, but if Kushina and the others were to use it, it is estimated that they would consume almost all of their chakra with one use. His purpose here was to test the 80 God's vacuum attack, and the results were satisfying. It was now one of his strongest techniques. Since I'm in the land of water, might as well take a look around. Shin looked towards the main island, which was visible from his current location. Though he was still technically within the land of water's territory, only the main island was populated. The surrounding islands were mostly deserted. He arrived on the main island, finding the people in a state of panic, terrified by the tremors and tsunami he inadvertently caused. Though he only destroyed a small, uninhabited island, the shockwave had reached the mainland.
My bad, Shin said, though he wasn't truly apologetic.
If anyone had died, he wouldn't lose any sleep over it. He didn't sympathize with the weak, but he wouldn't actively bully them either.
I wonder what's happening in Kirigakure.
Shin turned towards Kirigakure.
If the timeline was correct, the Bloody Mist era should be in full swing.
The Land of Water was the smallest of the 5 great nations, but Kirigakure had produced many powerful shinobi. There were numerous clans with Kekkei Genkai, like the Kagaya and Hozuki clans. And there was the 7 ninja swordsmen of the mist. Though their weapons were unorthodox, their strength was undeniable, and their swords held unique properties. However, thanks to Obito's manipulations, Kirigakure was on the decline. And now, with Mei Terumi gone, Shin wondered if Kirigakure could maintain its status as a major village. Shin soon arrived in Kirigakure,
his expression turning grim.
Though he knew the village was in chaos, it was worse than he imagined. The stench of blood hung heavy in the air.
Kirigakure truly is unfortunate. Among the 5 great villages, Kirigakure was arguably the most miserable one.
Controlled by Madara, then targeted by Obito's vengeance for Noara Rin's death, its strength had been decimated.
During the Third Shinobi World War, Noara Rin was captured by Kirigakure Anbu, and then the Three Tails was implanted in Noara Rin's body to destroy Konoha. In order not to harm her companions, Noara Rin voluntarily died under Kakashi's Chidori.
But all of this was planned by Madara Uchiha, and Kirigakure was just Madara Uchiha's chess piece. That explains the blood.
Shin knew the reason.
The Kagaya clan launched a rebellion and then started a war with Kirigakure. The group of lunatics from the Kagaya clan killed anyone they saw, whether they were shinobi or villagers from Kirigakure, it didn't matter. Kill. A member of the Kagaya clan, wielding a bone club, charged towards Shin. Looking at the guy with red eyes, as if he had lost his mind, Shin casually pinched this guy to death.
Shin has already labeled the Kagaya clan as mindless brutes. They were actually fighting Kirigakure?
Though weakened by Obito, Kirigakure was still a major village.
Chapter 267, Obito's Frustration.
The Kagaya clan's rebellion lasted only a day before being crushed. A clan couldn't stand against a village. Only one Kaguya remained, not Kimimaro, who had likely left Kirigakure with Orochimaru. Kimimaro, having been treated as a tool by his clan, probably didn't even consider himself a Kaguya.
The survivor was Kaguya Sora, the clan head, currently battling the 5th Mizukage, Yagura.
Shin watched their fight with interest. Yagura wasn't weak. Like Killer Bee, he could fully control his tailed beast's power. Shin didn't know how old Yagura was, but he was short, about the same height as Inoki, the 3rd Tsuchikage. He wielded a club adorned with green flowers, battling fiercely against Sora.
Dance of the Willow. Sora attacked Yagura with his clan's signature technique. Is that Shikatsumiyaku?
Shin was surprised.
He thought Kimimaro was the only one with Shikatsumiyaku in this era. That was why Kimimaro had been imprisoned and treated as a tool. Did my actions really change the world this much? Shin couldn't help but mutter to himself.
Perhaps. This Naruto world was already different from the original.
Obito Uchiha's here, too.
Shin noticed Obito hiding in the shadows.
Though Obito's concealment was good, it couldn't escape Shin's eyes.
It wasn't surprising Obito was here, he might have been staying in Kirigakure all along.
And he had to be here now. If he wasn't, Yagura might break free from his control during the battle.
I wonder if Obito will lose it if I free Yagura from his control.
Shin chuckled.
Shin was quite willful, doing whatever he thought of. His eyes instantly turned into 3 Tomo Sharingan, and then the 3 Tomo slowly rotated once. Yagura, who was fighting Kaguya Sora, trembled, and his eyes showed confusion.
Now's my chance. Die. Sora grinned and stabbed at Yagura's heart with a bone blade. Bam! Though Sora had seized the opportunity, his attack was blocked by the Three Tails chakra cloak.
The Three Tails was protecting Yagura.
If Yagura died, it would die too. Damn Three Tails! Sora was furious. He almost killed Yagura. The Three Tails chakra cloak was incredibly strong. The defense of the Three Tails should be the strongest among the tailed beasts. What's happening? Why did Yagura break free from my control?
Obito, who was observing in the dark, was shocked.
After Yagura was controlled, his actions were basically controlled by Obito.
Now that he lost control, Obito naturally noticed it immediately. He tried to regain control, but he failed.
It wasn't because of Shin, Yagura, and the Three Tails were already on guard.
Once a Jinchuriki and their tailed beast were aware of the Sharingan's control, it was difficult to control them again.
Their connection interfered with the Genjutsu. Uchiha Madara.
Yagura roared, his voice filled with rage. He pushed down his anger and focused on Sora.
Kaguya Sora, as long as you surrender, I can let bygones be bygones. Yagura said to Kaguya Sora. Yagura knew the state Kirigakure was in. Sora was a Kage-level shinobi, Yagura didn't want any more losses. But his words only enraged Sora. His entire clan was dead. How could he surrender? Die, Yagura! Sora unleashed his strongest attack, the dance of the seedling fern. Countless bone spikes erupted from the ground, impaling the surrounding Kiri shinobi. Yagura's expression sank.
There was no room for negotiation.
He attacked Sora with his full strength, his three-tailed chakra cloak swirling around him.
Free from Obito's control, his power was even greater.
He overwhelmed Sora, whose attacks couldn't penetrate the chakra cloak. Yagura isn't weak.
Shin observed Yagura's strength. He wasn't the weakest of the Kage.
If Shin had to choose the weakest, it would be Raza, the fourth Kazekage. The first and second Kazekage aside, the others all had embarrassing moments.
The third Kazekage had been killed and turned into a puppet by Sasori.
Raza had been assassinated by Orochimaru.
And Gaara, the future fifth Kazekage, had almost been killed by Kimimaro before being captured by Sasori and Deidara, who extracted Shikaku. If Chiyo hadn't sacrificed herself to revive him, he'd be dead.
The battle between Yagura and Sora lasted an entire day, ending with Sora's defeat and escape. Yagura didn't pursue him. Even a brute knows when to run.
Shin glanced at Yagura, then at Obito, who was hiding in the shadows, and silently followed Sora.
He wasn't after Shikatsu Miyaku. He wanted the all-killing Ash Bones, a far more powerful ability.
According to speculation, Shikatsu Miyaku should be a degradation of all-killing Ash Bones, similar to the relationship between Sharingan and Rinnegan, but Shin wasn't confident that he could upgrade Shikatsu Miyaku to the level of all-killing Ash Bones.
He followed Kagaya Sora, wanting to capture him and study him. Maybe he could research all-killing Ash Bones based on Shikatsu Miyaku. He could try, and it wouldn't matter if he failed. Chapter 268, Asking Orochimaru for help? Who are you?
Kagaya Sora held a bone blade in his hand, and his eyes released fierce killing intent.
You don't even recognize me? I guess I'm not as famous as I thought.
Shin shook his head with disappointment.
As expected, he hadn't reached the point where the entire shinobi world recognized him.
It was similar to Madara Uchiha, though his name was legendary, few would recognize him in person.
Die. Kagaya Sora obviously didn't want to talk nonsense with Shin.
Holding the bone blade, he slashed towards Shin, assuming he was a Kiri shinobi sent to kill him.
I like your decisiveness. Shin didn't want to talk nonsense either. He wanted to achieve his objective and return to the land of whirlpools. It was getting late. He didn't want Kushina and the others getting angry. He drew his Kusanagi blade, blocking Sora's bone blade.
The impact left a small chip in Sora's weapon, and Shin's eyes widened slightly in surprise.
It was surprisingly durable. Impressive.
That bone's tougher than I thought, Shin said with a light laugh.
Kagaya Sora didn't pay any attention to what Shin said. The Kagaya clan members became very bloodthirsty and crazy after entering a battle state.
Kagaya Sora was in that state now, focused solely on killing Shin.
Bone spikes erupted from his body, shooting towards Shin. In close combat, few clans could match the Kagaya clan. Too slow. Shin's Kusanagi blade flashed, and then Kagaya Sora froze, a line of blood appearing on his neck.
Before Sora even realized what had happened, his throat had been severed.
He collapsed, dead.
Shin sheathed his sword, storing both the blade and Sora's corpse in the Kamui dimension. Kamui was convenient for storage. This was equivalent to carrying a portable inventory.
Time to leave. He used Yamatsu Hirasaka to return to the land of whirlpools, arriving just as Makoto finished preparing dinner. After dinner, Shin retrieved Kagaya Sora's body from Kamui. His purpose was to study Shikatsu Miyaku.
As for why he killed Kagaya Sora instead of keeping him alive for research, Shin wasn't a pervert like Orochimaru. He wanted the all-killing Ash Bones, Kagaya Otsutsuki's signature technique, a Kekkei Mora ability where sharp bone projectiles erupted from the user's hand, causing anything they touched to disintegrate at a molecular level. It was a powerful technique. Even 6 Paths Obito had been disintegrated by it. A one-hit kill jutsu, arguably even more potent than truth-seeking orbs. If it had perfect accuracy, it would be unstoppable, second only to Shin's, Tenmomai, and Takamagara. Shin definitely wanted that ability, but he suspected he'd have to wait until Kagaya was revived and copy it from her.
Shin, whose body is that? Kushina asked Shin. Because Shin threw Kagaya Sora's corpse out in the yard, Kushina and the others naturally saw it.
If I had to guess, I'd say it's a Kagaya.
Tsunade looked at Kagaya Sora and said. The Kagaya clan's characteristics were too obvious. The 2 red dots on the brow, and that hairstyle, were particularly easy to identify. That's right. It's Kagaya Sora, the Kagaya clan head.
Mei Terumi stared at Shin.
So during his absence, Shin ran to Kirigakure and killed the Kagaya clan head? You know him?
Shin looked at Terumi Mei with some surprise.
Of course. He's the Kagaya clan head.
I'm just surprised you killed him. Mei Terumi knew the Kagaya clan head was very strong. It was precisely because of this powerful clan head that the Kagaya clan was relatively arrogant in Kirigakure.
However, the Kagaya clan wasn't well liked. Their arrogance and bloodlust made them unpopular.
The Kagaya clan's been wiped out, Shin said.
Did you do it? Kushina blinked at Shin. No. They weren't my enemies. Why would I bother? They rebelled against Kirigakure and got themselves killed. In fact, even if the Kagaya clan didn't rebel, they were destined for destruction. Or rather, their Kagaya clan was actually forced to rebel by Kirigakure. So you killed Sora because he offended you? Makoto couldn't help but ask. No. I wanted to research his Shikatsumiyaku.
Shin shrugged and said, and then Shin began to do research.
Shin and what's wrong? Conan asked, seeing him frown. She wanted to help. It's a bit complicated. I'm not good at this kind of research. Shin didn't even know where to start. Then Shin looked at Tsunade. As the strongest medical shinobi, he wondered if Tsunade could help. Want my help? Tsunade asked, correctly interpreting his look. However, Tsunade shook her head at Shin. She couldn't help with researching Shikatsumiyaku either. I can't help with that. I'm a medic, not a geneticist. But I can recommend someone. Who? Shin asked. Orochimaru. Shin smacked his forehead. Of course. Orochimaru, the greatest scientist in the shinobi world, was the perfect person for this. He'd be thrilled to study Shikatsumiyaku. Chapter 269, The Akatsuki's Mission. Shin stored Kagaya Sora's body back in the Kemui dimension. Since he couldn't research it himself, he could only wait until tomorrow to find Orochimaru. It was already evening, and Shin wasn't that proactive. Mainly, Shin felt that even if he did research and got results, there might not be any gains. Shin's attitude was that it would be best if he could successfully research all killing ash bones, but it wouldn't matter if he couldn't. Shin could always use a replication card to copy it from Kagaya Otsutsuki. He'd probably need a divine replication card for that. Moreover, a single divine replication card might be enough to copy all of Kagaya's abilities. Shin also wanted to obtain her Amana Manaka, the ultimate spacetime ninjutsu. As the progenitor of chakra, Kagaya's power was incredibly tempting. The next morning, Shin headed for the Akatsuki's base. Since Orochimaru had joined Akatsuki, it was much easier to find him. He went straight to Orochimaru's lab. Orochimaru was living quite comfortably in Akatsuki. First of all, he didn't have to worry about Konoha assassins. Not that he feared them, but it was a hassle. Here, he could focus on his research, acquiring test subjects from the Land of Rain whenever he needed them. Although Pain disapproved of his methods, he didn't interfere. Nagato was no longer the Nagato he used to be, human lives were no longer a concern. Shin, you came here specifically to see me? Orochimaru asked, momentarily surprised. Indeed. I need a favor. Shin didn't talk nonsense and went straight to the point, throwing Kagaya Sora's body out of the Kamui space. A Kagaya? Orochimaru recognized the corpse instantly. He had recently been to Kirigakure and recruited Kimimaro, so he was familiar with the Kagaya clan's distinctive features. He hadn't brought Kimimaro to the Akatsuki base, instead keeping him at a separate location. Orochimaru's motives were his own. That's Kagaya Sora, the Kagaya clan head. Like your new recruit, Kimimaro, he possesses Shikatsumiyaku. I thought you might be interested. Orochimaru's expression hardened slightly. How did Shin know about Kimimaro? What kind of favor do you need? Orochimaru asked, his curiosity piqued. What could Shin possibly need help with? You're the expert in this area. I'd like you to research Shikatsumiyaku. Just share the data with me. Shin knew this would be tempting to Orochimaru, who was fascinated by Kekkai Genkai. He wouldn't experiment on Kimimaro directly, Kimimaro was his chosen vessel. Very well. Orochimaru agreed without hesitation. This was a win-win situation. I can't guarantee any results, though. That's fine. Just don't half-ass it. Tread, tread, tread. Heavy footsteps approached, followed by a knock on the door. Orochimaru, Pain wants to see you. Something important. Sasori's voice echoed from outside. Although Sasori and Orochimaru were teammates, their relationship was not harmonious. Sasori couldn't stand Orochimaru. Similarly, Orochimaru also wanted to dissect Sasori for research. Pain? I wonder if Shin is interested. Orochimaru's gaze turned to Shin. Sure. Why not? Shin was curious.
Shin and Orochimaru arrived at the chamber where the demonic statue of the outer path was housed, also the Akatsuki's meeting room.
Uzumaki Shin?
Pain's eyes obviously fluctuated when he saw Shin, and he began to guess why Shin Uzumaki appeared here.
Shin glanced around. Sasori and Kakuzu were present, though Kakuzu was only a chakra projection.
The magic lantern body technique was a forbidden technique used by the Akatsuki for communication.
Pain, am I not welcome? Shin asked with a faint smile. Pain didn't speak. It didn't matter if Shin Uzumaki came. Perhaps they could ask Shin Uzumaki for help. Leader, get on with it. I have money to make. Kakuzu couldn't help but be impatient when he saw Pain remain silent for a long time.
This was disturbing his money-making.
Indeed. I have a mission for you. What kind of mission? If it's too easy, I'm not interested, Sasori said.
He'd rather continue his puppet research. Yagura, the fifth Mizukage, has learned a crucial secret about the Akatsuki.
Your mission is to eliminate him. Shin's eyes narrowed.
This mission was related to him. Obito had likely ordered Pain to eliminate Yagura, who'd broken free of Obito's control thanks to Shin. While under Obito's control, Yagura had learned things he shouldn't have. Though not much, it was enough to jeopardize Obito's plans.
Eliminating Yagura was the safest course of action. Obito hadn't done it himself because he didn't want to be exposed, and killing Yagura in Kirigakure wouldn't be easy. Yagura was on guard now, and Obito's Sharingan wouldn't be as effective. And if a fight broke out, Obito couldn't defeat Yagura quickly.
Facing the entire village, he would be forced to flee. So Obito gave this task to Nagato.
Chapter 270, Kakuzu's Trauma. Leader, that's no easy mission. Sasori said after a moment of silence.
Assassinating a Kage in their own village was a dangerous undertaking.
Although arrogant and confident, Sasori wasn't foolish enough to think he could take on an entire hidden village. This time, the entire Akatsuki will participate. The fifth Mizukage Yagura must die.
Pain said in an unquestionable tone.
The masked man Uchiha Madara had stressed Yagura's threat.
If Yagura lived, it could jeopardize his plan for world peace. Yahiko's dream had to be realized.
Go prepare. Pain dismissed them. Kakuzu's projection vanished, abandoning his money-making endeavors to prepare for the mission.
Everyone left, and only Shin and Pain were left here. Oh, along with a hidden observer.
Come out.
There's no point hiding, Shin said, standing atop the demonic statue. Not far from Shin, space-warped, and Obito Uchiha emerged. Pain remained impassive, though he was wary of the masked man's spacetime ninjutsu, regardless of whether he was truly Madara Uchiha.
Uzumaki Shin, what are you doing here? Obito asked, his tone unfriendly.
He couldn't see Obito's expression through the mask, but his tone was hostile.
Are you questioning me?
Shin turned his head and glanced at Obito.
Uchiha Obito had become bolder. Had he forgotten the previous lesson? Obito's face sank. How should he respond? He couldn't lose face.
Even though Obito felt that his strength had improved a lot now, he still had no confidence.
He didn't know the extent of Uzumaki Shin's power. Zetsu had warned him that even Madara Uchiha was wary of Uzumaki Shin, so Obito chose to remain silent. Nagato, observing through the Deva path, found this interesting.
It seemed Shin and the masked man weren't allies after all. The masked man was clearly wary of Shin, even afraid.
Nagato's suspicion about the masked man's true identity grew. He wasn't Uchiha Madara. Since meeting the masked man, Nagato had been investigating Madara. The masked man's behavior didn't match the intel he'd gathered. Regardless, Nagato didn't care. As long as he could fulfill Yahiko's dream and achieve world peace, it didn't matter if the masked man was Madara or not. Madara, are you joining us in Kirigakure to eliminate Yagura? Pain asked Obito.
My identity must remain hidden.
That's why I'm having you do this. Do you think Amir Mizuki is a threat to me? Obito glanced at Pain indifferently, saying it quite arrogantly. Put. Shin's derisive snort made Obito's facade crumble. Obito wasn't sure he could handle Yagura. If he attacked directly, unless he could kill Yagura instantly, he'd be facing the entire village. He could escape, but he wouldn't be able to kill Yagura. Obito only had one Sharingan. If he had both Mangekyo Sharingan, his power would be far greater. Speaking of the Mangekyo Sharingan, Shin still had Ryota's Mangekyo Sharingan stored away. It had been too long, and Shin had forgotten about it. Obito was annoyed by Shin's mocking laughter, but he held his tongue, fuming inwardly. I have other matters to attend to. He used that as an excuse and vanished with Kamui. If he continued to stay, he was afraid he would lose all face. Orochimaru and Sasori quickly prepared for the mission. Soon the Akatsuki members set off for the Land of Water. Orochimaru had just returned from the Land of Water and was now going back. This time, Pain was joining them, which meant Nagato was coming too. The 6 paths of Pain couldn't operate too far from Nagato. Shin also tagged along to join in the fun. There was no need for Shin to take action. Nagato, as the leader of the Akatsuki, could handle it. At this time, Nagato's strength was likely at the low end of Super Kage level, far exceeding a typical Kage. He was stronger than Obito, but Obito's Kamui was tricky. If they fought, Nagato wouldn't be able to defeat Obito. And Nagato's frail body made him vulnerable. If Obito found an opening, he could kill Nagato. They soon arrived in the Land of Water. Kakuzu also joined them. And Kakuzu, upon seeing Uzumaki Shin, immediately backed away. He still had nightmares about Shin casually destroying 4 of his hearts. He was terrified. Looking at Kakuzu, who looked like he had seen a ferocious beast, Shin couldn't help but want to complain. Was he that scary? Leader, how do you plan to infiltrate Kirigakure? Orochimaru looked at Pain. Looking at the purple Rinnegan, Orochimaru's eyes were full of endless greed, and he didn't hide it at all. Poof! Pain snorted coldly. His icy Rinnegan glared at Orochimaru. He knew Orochimaru was after the Rinnegan, but he wasn't concerned. He was confident Orochimaru couldn't take them. Orochimaru looked away, a predatory glint in his snake-like eyes. All along, he hadn't given up on obtaining the Rinnegan, he just needed the right opportunity. That wraps up this part of What If Copy System in Naruto. Thanks so much for listening. As always, new parts drop every 4 days, so be sure to stay tuned. Also check out my Patreon channel for early releases of all the series, where you can find all the series released 1 day ahead of YouTube. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, share it with your friends, and please consider supporting the original author as well. See you in the next one.